Love and health form the foundation and pillars that support all that you do to create fulfillment and success in every aspect of your life. Love within us guides our paths while our health enables us to drive forward. The two are inseparable and vital for growth and reaching your fullest potential. Welcome to Love and Health in America with Dr. Doohi Lee, Mary McMahon, and Gens Johnson. Dr. Lee is an international speaker, author, inventor of the Diamond Matrix, and medical director of Advanced Surgical Arts. Mary McMahon is a certified financial planner professional committed to maximizing your financial success. And Gens Johnson, the mindset master, is a best-selling author, speaker, mastermind facilitator, and success mindset coach. They are committed to help you succeed by optimizing your health, finances, and relationships. Please join them and explore all the facets of love and health to achieve and live your abundant life. Here are your hosts, Dr. Doohi Lee, Mary McMahon, and Gens Johnson.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Love and Health in America. My name is Gens Johnson. I'm the Mindset Master, and I'm here with my two amazing co-hosts, Mary McMahon, certified financial planner, and she's amazing, and Dr. Doohi Lee, who we also call Dr. Bombay.
Dr. Bombay.
So I don't know if any of you have watched that show, Bewitched, back in the day, where there was Dr. Bombay who could come in right away and fix any problem. So that's really what Dr. Lee is for us. But we're going to talk about a topic today that I'm really, really excited about, and that topic is love. And of course, the title of our podcast here is Love and Health in America. And between the three of us, you know, one of the things that I say all the time is I am heart-centered. You know, I'm the type of person that I care deeply about other people. And even if I don't know him, you know, I care about people, and I know the two of you are the same way. Mm-hmm. And it's really a bond that we have together, and it's one of the many traits that we share. But, you know, when we're talking about the world in which we live today, the world needs so much more love. You know, there's division. And, you know, one of the things we were talking about before the show started is I've never been addicted to social media, but prior to all the COVID stuff that has transpired over the last year and a half, I mean, I was on social media more because there was more positivity. But now you get on social media and there's a lot of division. Yeah. There's a lot of hatred. There's a lot of anger. And I think as leaders, we need to step up and have a different narrative. And so instead of all of the hate and the doubt and the fear, we need to really say, let's have a conversation about love. And we're going to talk about selfless love. But before we jump into selfless love and what that is really all about, I want to know from the two of you, what have you experienced personally on social media and with people in your clients that you come in contact with regarding the division that's out in the world right now?
Well, I think the division is very clear, and unfortunately it's becoming more and more clear as we go through time, and I think it's obviously political. I agree with you. I think before COVID started, social media and Facebook and all those were fairly benign places we can go and kind of share information, and that was the whole point of social media, to share experiences with each other for people who are far away, and you can post things and, hey, I did this, I did that, and people post food, which is kind of crazy, but that's what they do. But it was a sort of commonality that people could share. Now with COVID, everything that's going on, the divisions are getting sharper and sharper, and even among medical professionals, very different ideas and opinions about how to deal with COVID, vaccines, no vaccines, masks, no vaccine, every little facet of what we're going through. There's so much division and no real thought about, stepping back and being more rational about what's going on and looking at the data from a little bit of a distance and figuring out, okay, we're being bombarded with this information. How much of it is really true? How much of it is not? How much is fake? Because we know a lot of this is fake, a lot of it is propaganda. And I think what's interesting is I think most Americans, who are people who were born here anyway, have grown up in a country where there really is, quote unquote, little propaganda, even though we know now how much there was. But I was born in another country where propaganda was part of growing up. I mean, this is, you didn't know what it was, but you were being fed that. So I think, people who have not had that kind of experience don't know how to sift through the information and to figure out what is real and what's not. And I think that is part of the problem that's causing the divisions, because people just kind of latch onto things in an emotional way. And doctors are no different. We're human beings with emotions and biases like everybody else. And I keep thinking, put your professional hat on, step back a little bit, look at the data, look at the science, and really figure out what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. I mean, it's not hard stuff. The problems that I see scientifically is glaring. Of course, I know there'll be 1,000 people out there disagreeing with me and screaming and yelling that I'm whatever, but just from my perspective as a scientific background, it's like, no, this stuff is pretty obvious. It's not that hard to sit there and say, let's question this. You know what I mean? And I think, Mary, I know you went through some of this kind of stuff yourself as well, but just from a medical perspective, it's very, very different. It's hard to get a consensus and trying to find a commonality of moving forward and how to defeat this idea of COVID and the pandemic and all the kind of stuff that we're being bombarded at, and tearing apart the division and moving together forward, even though there may be some disagreements, which is fine, that happens as part of life, but at least have a commonality of direction as a group of people, rather than being split apart, which is basically foundation of hate. That's what you talked about earlier.
Right, exactly. And I think that you bring up some really great points, and that is, we have to, as good people everywhere, we've got to stand up, and we've got to say, you know what, you've got the mainstream media, you've got both political parties,
Sure.
You've got all of these people that are talking about division, and they're talking about hate, and they're talking about fear. That means the masses, because I really do believe the majority of people are good people.
Yes, yeah,
that
I believe
means
that.
the
I believe that.
masses, we have to have the narrative of love and selfless love.
Yeah.
And, I think that we have a responsibility. And there is, I don't know if you've heard of Rhonda Byrne, but she's the creator of the book, The Secret. And I love that book. In our mastermind, we read it a couple years ago. But here's a quote from her. She said, "Love is the highest power we possess. To be in complete harmony with the law of attraction, the more love we feel, the greater our power." So the more love that we possess, the more love we feel, the more love we show, the more kind that we are to one another, the greater our power. And I know Mary's going to talk a lot about the power of love, because you've got to come from a place of power, and you can't come from a place of power if you're not based in love, if that's not your foundation. She says, the more selfless love we possess, the more unfathomable our power. The law of attraction has been called the law of love because the law itself is a gift of love to humanity. It is the law by which we can create incredible lives for ourselves. The more love we generate, the more love we give, the greater our power to create a magnificent life of love, joy, and harmony, and the more positive ripples we can make in this world. Mary.
There is so much about myself in our world today, and I think social media really augments that, and people are scared. You look at what the name of our podcast is, Love and Health in America, and we talk about how love is the foundation of life, and that is your real power right there. Your health is a function of your love, and your money is a function of your love, and that selfless love. We are all here to be a contribution to those around us with the talents and gifts that we have. We happen to live in a society that wants to control and manipulate us. We've got government, which is always about, every institution has self-interest. So government has an interest in centralizing power. Then you've got the corporate media that wants to centralize that power. Then you've got big corporate companies, and I'm going to put in there what people don't realize, that what runs the U.S. economy, what runs the global economy, is the U.S. small business economy. That means under 500 employees. That is what runs the economy. but it's in the big banks, and the government has always needed the bankers. The bankers have always needed the government. And then you've got the big corporation, because the 20th century was the rise of the modern day corporation. And so the 20th century, which we're 100 years in plus of the big bankers and the government. And we created the Federal Reserve Board with an act in 1913, but that's become political. So all these self-interests of government, corporate media controlling the communications, and the big bankers, and they all have a self-interest with each other. And these self-interests, that's all people hear. And in fact, look at all the hubbub about social media companies and how they're not controlled, and they are manipulating what people think, what people say. And so people just naturally, just from a very deep level, are just scared.
They're bombarded.
Yeah, they're not getting messages of love from our government. They're not getting messages of love from the corporate media.
No.
They're not getting messages of love from big corporate companies. They're not getting messages of love from big banker. We live in our economy is based on a scarcity mentality. I get more, you have less.
Exactly.
Yes, and so there's all this friction and this fear, and just the mere fact that, you know, in the economy when land was wealth, 300 years ago, if you owned the land, you were the wealthy one. Then we became an industrial economy, and so wealth was concentrated in land and factories. And we are in the information era where you can take ideas and across the world you can create an immense amount of wealth. And what we see in the last 50 years is this, since our last major currency shift, is that the middle class is falling farther and farther and farther and farther and farther behind. Mm-hmm. And the people, then there's this small group of people just getting wealthier, wealthier, wealthier. There's always been that divide, but it's really getting so wide now. Mm-hmm. And people are frustrated because they think they're supposed to follow these rules that our government, the corporate media, big corporate companies, big banks, that they follow these rules, but then they find out it's like, they don't have any love, and they don't have health, and they don't have any money. And they're mad. And they let it all out on social media.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you know,
yeah, pitting one against the other.
Well, and when we talk about selfless love, I love this definition because you mentioned interest. And people need to realize, you know, you got to follow the money. Because a lot of the institutions that you brought up, it's money based. Their interest is money. But selfless love means to love regardless of your personal needs. You love wholeheartedly without loving yourself, without any personal gain. It's the opposite of selfish love.
And you know what that means in my world is that selfless love is that you be true to who you are, mm-hmm. and you make your own rules.
That's right.
Because you know what the rules are, but it's fear that keeps you from expressing who you are.
Well, and Dr. Lee said it at the very beginning, is we're being fed propaganda, whether we realize it or not. And I'm going to be real honest, I did not realize that. I didn't realize that until the last, year and a half. Then you open your eyes and you really see that if we as good people don't stand up and we don't speak of the narrative of love, and we don't start to explain to people that every person's action is either based in love or fear. And if we're not doing things out of a place of selfless love, then all that people are doing is it's based out of fear or self-interest, like you said. And we can't operate in this world and come from a place of power and do wonderful, great things if we don't start talking about love more.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I was just kind of realizing while Mary was talking, the shift that has happened over, great periods. I mean, the social media has been around for, 10, 12 years or something. It really isn't even that long of a period. But if you look at the human interactions before social media really became what it is now, We all have our own, small group of people that are close to, friends, family, et cetera, et cetera. And before social media, the interactions were really fairly limited. Everybody had tiny little pods of family and friends. Some people had a lot of friends, some people had, a few friends. But your phone calls and letter writing and those kind of things were really limited to those people that you really truly cared about, had a personal relationship with. Now you blow that up in social media, you post something, it goes everywhere. Some stranger from Timbuktu will read your post and scream and yell and say, oh, you're this, you're that. It's like, who are you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So all of a sudden, that sense of anonymity and protection of love by the people that you're close to is really ripped apart. Because I'm getting friends requests from people who knows where. It's like, well, you're friends with this person, you're friends with that person, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, degrees of separation. It's like, okay, if you're that connected with me, maybe I'll let you be my friend or something. But it's a total stranger. I don't know who they are.
I've got one of those that I need to tell you to remove.
This is true. This is true of anybody.
There's a fake person on Facebook that friended me that says he's a colonel or a 4-star general in the Army, and I know a 4-star general's wife, and she's like, no, that's not him.
But you see what I'm talking about. But you're talking about, what I'm talking about, right? So you get a lot of fakers, there are scammers who do these kind of things. So all kinds of things happen. So, but anyway, that's one aspect of the erosion of sense of security and closeness, which is the basis of love. We talk about selfless love, but if you actually turn around and if it goes full circle, it actually becomes selfish, because if you give selflessly, the karma and whatever else you want to believe about it comes back and actually benefits you. So in effect, it's indirectly selfish in a sense. It turns around and benefits you, but that should not be your motivation for doing that and imparting the ideas and behaviors of selfless love. But everything you talked about, Mary, the problems they're going through, this is all generated. I mean, this is not happening by accident. And that's the kind of stuff that I talk about.
Absolutely.
That's the kind of stuff I talk about from a medical point of view on social media, and maybe who knows what's going to happen to me eventually. Because I saw some patients today, as aren't you afraid? It's like, I don't think about it. I don't have time to be afraid. But anyway, but this is, all the divisions and those 4 entities you talked about, they are in cahoots. Yeah. And the reason there's a huge divide in income and wealth gap is because there's been a manipulated transfer of wealth from the middle class to these people.
Yeah, it's called.
And that's what's going on. And they're literally stealing the money that we're generating through taxes and all that.
Mm-hmm. And excuse me for just interjecting at this point, and it's not necessarily, it is all through taxes, but what people don't realize is that those taxes are all communicated as something for you. Here's money for you.
Yeah,
it's going to be money
good.
for
Right,
you.
right.
It's for your own good.
Yeah, it's money for you, and it's like what you don't realize is like you're the one paying for it.
Right, exactly.
And you're not getting back what you put in.
No, and the whole point of the government making money, well, government makes money by tax. It's taking your money to make its money and then decide what to do with it rather than turning around.
They don't make money. They
don't make
actually
money.
Just redistribute
Exactly.
money.
That's exactly what it is. And that's the whole idea. And the whole idea of this, recent, I don't want to get into the whole political stuff, but
No,
since
it's
we're
not
talking
political,
about love,
it's
but
economic.
it is intimately
Right,
connected
right.
because, how we trying to transcend this division that is literally being forced on us. And of course, this whole saying, divide and conquer. Well, the more you divide, separate the people, easier it is to conquer them, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what they're
Yeah.
doing. So the question has to do with, the topic that we're talking about is love. How do we use the principles of, selfless love and the idea of love in general to overcome this and really realize, let's forget about these petty differences that we're fighting about on social media and
have to.
whatnot. Let's come together because all in all, together, we're
We
much
have to.
stronger. And look what's happening with Southwest. All these people literally banded together and said, we're all going to be sick.
You know what? It was awesome
Huge
because
example.
the CEO of Southwest was. I saw something on social media, and he was talking, and he said, "We don't agree with this. We don't agree with forcing a mandate on people because." Forcing isn't love.
Right.
It's not love. And how do we change it and how do we unify the masses? We have to talk about it. We have to educate people. We've got to let people know what's really going on because, even money in general, people don't really understand money because we're not taught that. That's not what we're taught as we're growing up. Really, the ins and outs of money, if you don't go and seek that information out, it's not going to come to you. So I just think that we need to.
You're not going to get that information out there in the public either, because it's controlled and manipulated so that you don't know
No.
how it works.
So I just think that
You can come to me, though.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
You know, and that's one of the things that even the three of us, I mean, we want you as viewers to let us know, what are the topics that you want to know about? You know, Mary knows everything about money. What are the topics in mindset that you're struggling with? Let us know. What are the topics that you want Dr. Lee to talk about and discuss? Because we have to share our knowledge with other people. We have to share our wisdom. We have to share our mindset. We have to let people know that there is a difference between coming from a place of love versus coming from a place of fear or control. And just like I think you said, Dr. Lee, or maybe you said it, Mary, that sometimes people don't even know the difference.
Right.
They do not even know the difference. Where, you know, we didn't grow up with social media. We didn't grow up with these smartphones in our hands. So it's very clear. I mean, when somebody's coming from a place of control, or they're coming from a place of fear, I can see that. But not everybody can anymore.
Well, what's interesting is I see a lot of patients for COVID, obviously. And this is like, if you want to call it revolution or whatever, because obviously there's a lot of fear and people are being imposed and everybody's, not violently, but internally, rejecting all these mandates and all the things that are being forced on us in terms of medical tyranny, if you will, right? So all the patients I'm talking to, I mean, they're all individually saying, I don't want this, I don't want the vaccine, I don't want being forced or whatever. And that is the little defiance. If I can harness all those people's feelings and power of defiance into one group, I mean, that's how things change. You got to harness, but everybody's all scattered. Individually, we're feeling this resentment and maybe eventually boils over, then turns into a more of a mass movement. But right now, I'm sensing so many people, I've treated hundreds of patients, so it's very consistent, people that I've treated, what they're feeling in terms of what's going on.
A lot of people feel like they have to go along to get along, to follow the rules so that they can have their success in life. But you won't have your success in life that way. You have to be true to who you are, and that selfless love that we're talking about today, that is your highest expression as a human being of your spiritual self, is that selfless love. Mm-hmm. And we are to be that.
Right.
That's what we are to be. Everything gets created from there.
Mike Doohi has this quote, and it says, "In the beginning, the price of giving great love is risking that it won't be returned." Mm-hmm. And that is a risk until you understand that great love is always returned with interest. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we can't be scared. We can't be scared. I can't tell you how many times I've said, I don't know what's going to happen next week. I don't know what's going to happen next month. I don't know what's going to happen next year.
Hour.
I don't know. Exactly.
Hour.
But you have to live in a place where you realize we've all been given gifts and talents, and we have to bless the world with our gifts and talents. We have to.
We have to.
And we can't worry about what is going to happen. Like you said, you're too busy to worry. Worry comes from fear. That's based in fear. And when you really love yourself, you operate in a different manner. You don't put yourself first. You realize that there's a greater purpose, a greater calling, a greater assignment that we all have on our lives, and we've got to talk about this narrative, because like you said, Dr. Lee, I think there's a lot of people that they're and like you said, they're going along to get along, but we have to realize that what is the interest? What is at the base, the foundation of what we're going through in society right now? Is it to help us have more love, and is it to help us create these individual people that are living their best life, or is it to conform and to control? And what I'm experiencing and what I'm seeing is the latter.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So we've got to
Yeah.
talk about love, because that's really at the end of the day, that's where it starts.
Yeah, and this whole saying,
Yes.
right? I hate the
Yes.
sin, love the sinner. I mean, same thing with the discourse. If you agree with somebody, fine. You can have a disagreement, but still have a respect and love for the person, because hopefully you're having a dialogue, whether it's cordial or not, because you know the person, they're part of your life, unless you're some total stranger coming at you. But mostly, the social media, you get to become friends and get to know each other. Without necessarily being physically present, but there's still that interaction and the sharing of ideas. But if somebody disagrees with you, I mean, I have no problems being disagreed upon or disagreeing with somebody, but I have no animosity towards somebody unless there's an outright, assault, insult, or whatever, which is never called for. Even then, that you can deflect that away, because it's like there's no need to even respond to things like this. Just deflect it and move on. But I think that's the basis. It's really the idea that if somebody opposes you in an idea, are they opposing you as a full person, or is it your idea? And that's sometimes difficult to ascertain, because some people will attack you as a whole person, which is not always fair. But anyway, but if they can, that is the idea. If you can kind of figure out how to deflect the disagreement, okay, let's agree to disagree, because this happens all day in life. It doesn't have to be about vaccines and COVID. It can be anything else in life, but you can still have friendship and get along. I mean, great example is Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Antonia, how they were great friends, but in court they fought tooth and nail because they're at the opposite camps. But intellectually they fought, but together they were opera lovers and wine drinkers, and they had great friendship. It was like, God, this is the most amazing example of how people who from very different backgrounds and thoughts about life and philosophy about how this country works, and have that spirited, I'm sure, disagreements in their chambers, but still be great friends and love and respect each other.
Because they had a relationship based in
On
love.
love, exactly,
Yeah.
and respect.
And
that's what's
that's,
so important.
That's really what we've gotten away from in this society, is that we've allowed the fear and the control to take away the two greatest commandments that we've been given, which is it's love. And so we've got to talk about that narrative more and more. You talk about the practice of medicine. And I worked for a hospital system years ago for, 10 years or so. And I was at this event one time, and the keynote speaker was a physician. And he said, I really want to explain something to people, that the reason why they say practice medicine is because it's not an exact science.
It's not.
And
I can tell you every day it's
and
not.
every person is different. Every person is different. So to come from a place of you want to force every person to one certain type of treatment, like that doesn't even make sense.
Absolutely not.
It's not based in love. But if you argue, like you were saying, Dr. Lee, if you argue and you attack a person, and that's what's happening.
Yeah.
That's not based in love. If you disagree with an idea or a philosophy, you can have those conversations based in love, but people aren't talking about love enough.
When social media, when Facebook came on to, when people really started to use it in the 2000s, before we got to the 2000 teens, I looked at it as like, gosh, what a great way of connecting with the people that you love,
exactly.
and being able to
was
share.
Right.
Share.
we thought it
You know
was,
what?
right?
That's how it was presented.
Exactly.
And
That's
now
how
that's
it
how
started.
it started.
That's how it started.
Yeah, and now it's this, and now it's being weaponized against
Exactly.
us, exactly the ways that we're talking about today.
So what's
and it's so
interesting-
destructive.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, we're just talking about basis of love and hate, right? So this is the defense, because what is being done to us is hate. Okay,
Exactly.
they're all the attack on our interactions and thoughts and even the
Yeah.
vaccines. None of that is based on our concern for our welfare. If that was, they would say the vaccine doesn't exist. I mean, it's a horrible thing. But since it is a divide based on hatred and division, splitting all of us up, have different camps so we can all fight and never have an agreement, That is the purpose of what they're doing.
100%.
And what is
yeah.
the greatest defense against that? It's like you
Love.
said, love. You have to unify. In spite of the difference in opinions, at the end of the day, we are one people.
Yeah.
And that's that core commonality of we have a constitutional republic. That is the basis of our existence in this country. And if we can agree on that, we can all agree on that, except for, of course, the fringes out there. But, we're not talking about them. But the great majority of people that make up what Americans are, that is the basis of our existence in this country. That's the love of our country. That is the foundation for that. And I think we kind of forget that. And I think if we can come back to find out, okay, this is why we're here. That's why we are Americans. That's why we do what we do. And all the other forces that are coming in to divide us is designed to crack that unity. And that's what they're doing.
Yeah. I want to bring something in we haven't talked about, which is love and health. There are a lot of mental health issues out there that are just not even addressed because our medical establishment, other than you, is not, but there are some great doctors out there I know, that people who have mental health issues, they just don't get addressed. It just doesn't get addressed.
Right, sure.
And it comes out that way.
And I personally think a lot of the social media is impacting our adolescents
Tremendously.
in a negative way with their
Sure.
mental health. I mean, I know friends who have children that are in elementary school that are in counseling for anxiety, and it's crazy. It is crazy what is happening. But like you said, you've got to go back and say, where is this coming from? And if it's not coming from love, we've got to steer clear of it. I mean, we've just got to steer clear of it. But, the type of person that I am, I always like to take in a lot of information. I like to simplify it because I think most people, they like to hear things in layman's terms. They like it to just be simple. And that really is as simple as we can get it, is if it's based in love, it feels good. And there's a calmness to it, and you feel right about it.
Sure.
And we have to unify, and we've got to combat the hate with the love. We have to say that it's okay if we don't think exactly alike. I love you because you're a person. And I'm going to give another quote here. It says, selfless love means loving without any attachment to an expectation in return. Right. We have to learn to give without expecting anything back. It says it means whatever you do it from your heart. Don't do it out of fear. This comes purely from a place within you which has no preconceived expectations. And the other thing, too, is in order for you to give love freely, you have to love yourself. Sure. Yeah. And that's what a lot of the social media is doing to these kids and people that do have mental health issues. First of all, it's giving them mental health issues. But they don't love themselves. Because believe me, and I mean this with all sincerity, I would die for any human being, I don't care if I knew him or not, if I saw another human being in distress and I could help, I would die, because that's what you're supposed to do. And you don't have that conviction if you don't love yourself. So we really have to be talking more about love and health and money in America to save our amazing country. There have been so many people that have died.
Oh, yes.
So we can
They
have
still
the
do.
freedom that we
They still
have,
do.
and they still do, exactly. But we all have to do our part. Every single one of us has to do our part.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
We are all important.
And we're all in this together.
That's right. Yeah, but not in the way they say it.
Exactly. So any parting words before we close up? I've loved this conversation.
Live richly.
Love deeply.
And stay healthy.
Thank you for being with us for this episode of Love and Health in America. Dr. Doohi Lee, Mary McMahon, and Gens Johnson are committed to help you achieve a life full of love, health, and abundance. Please join us in our next episode as we share another facet for you to optimize love and health in your life. Until next time, love deeply, live richly, and stay healthy.